Hello and good morning, all of you. We are discussing a very interesting and psychological poem. The name of the poem is Porphyria's Lover, written by Robert Browning. In the last class, we talked about the psychological angle of this poem. The poetic diction is multi layered. There are various things which, in the first reading or a general reading, you won't understand. But the step by step analysis and the critical appreciations which the established critics have made of this poem will help you in understanding this poem with its holistic meaning. Robert Browning has established his poetic craftsmanship through Porphyria's Lover and another famous poem, My Last Duchess. Friends, these poems are so famous that in almost all the English departments of India, where Robert Browning is introduced as a poet, these two poems are the must included poems in the syllabus: Porphyria's Lover and My Last Duchess. In today's class, friends, we are going to complete this poem. This will be the last lecture of Unit 11, and we are going to discuss the predilection for the outrageous. What is that predilection? What is that outrage? What is that emotional ecstasy which is visible in this poem? We are going to discuss in this 30 minutes lecture. But before that, let me tell you what will be the lecture outcome of, let's say, this data. You would be able to consider Porphyria's Lover as a predilection for the outrageous. Porphyria's Lover is the person who is shown with the, let's say, outrage, with the ecstasy of emotions. And we are going to look at, let's say, this character, this portrait as a masterpiece of Robert Browning in this lecture. So, without wasting much time, let us now start discussion on this topic, the predilection for the outrageous. Porphyria's Lover, which first appeared in 1836, is one of the earliest and most shocking of Browning's dramatic monologues. Friends, this dramatic monologue is not only, let's say, one of the earliest ones of Robert Browning, but this is one of the most shocking ones as well. The speaker lives in a cottage in the countryside. So, you can, friends, imagine that the setting of the poem is according to the romantic poems or Wordsworthian poems. There is a cottage which is somewhere in the countryside at a remote place located, and lover alone lives in this cottage, suggesting that he is not only alone in his life, but he is also alone in his emotions. There is only one person whom he loves, is the beloved, and the beloved has now finally decided to leave the lover under social pressure or whatever the reasons are. His lover, a blooming young woman named Porphyria, comes in out of a storm and proceeds to make a fire and brings cheer to the cottage. So, we see, friends, that this cottage is full of isolation and negativity. There is one ray of hope in the life of this lover, and that one ray of hope is his beloved. And she knows what role she has to play in this, in the life of the lover. Without thinking about the storm, she came to his cottage. Immediately, she starts working on her duties. She proceeds to make a fire and then she tries to bring cheer to this cottage. Bringing cheer to this cottage means she knows that how to make the inside weather of this cottage as cozy and comfortable for the lover. It also shows that she is concerned about the requirements of the lover. She knows what her work is, and which is why the lover loves her even more than anything else in this world. She embraces the speaker, offering him her bare shoulders. So, she not only knows what are the physical requirements of the lover, but she also knows what are the emotional requirements of the lover. Lover was in a mentally disturbed state. He needs a shoulder, and she offers the one as soon as she lights the fire and makes the inside weather cozy. He tells us that he does not speak to her. Instead, he says, she begins to tell him how she has momentarily overcome societal structures to be with him. Friends, when she offers shoulder to him and they start talking, she explains him her position. She is under the societal structure, societal pressure. For this moment, she has overcome from all those pressures. What her parents will think, or what neighbors will think, or what, let's say, other known people will think. For a moment, she has decided to do a revolt against all those superstructures. He does not speak to her because he don't know about these worldly affairs. The woman is more intelligent. She knows about the society. He realizes that she worships him at this instant. So, in this dramatic monologue, we see that the lover is in the triumphant position. How? First, the beloved has come to meet him without thinking much about her relatives. Second, that the beloved worships him according to that particular instant. She is taking care of him, realizing that she will eventually give in to society's pressures, and wanting to preserve the moment, he wraps her hair around her neck and strangles her. So, there is a, let's say friends, a shocking situation which appears now. When she was talking about the societal pressures with the lover, he wanted to preserve that moment. He wanted to be in the company of the beloved. He did not want to leave her, and which is why he immediately wraps her hair around her neck. Maybe he had no cloth, or maybe Browning is trying to say that the hair of the women were very long and beautiful and strong. Maybe there is another symbol which can be interpreted from this, let's say, strangling scene, suggesting that no weapon is used to murder the beloved. So, this, let's say, this scene cannot be considered as murder. The hair of the beloved were wrapped around her neck, suggesting that this is a justified act. The lover has not used any weapon, which is why the act of lover is justified in this situation. He then toys with her corpse, opening the eyes and propping the body up against his side. So, we then see that the lover starts playing with the body of the beloved. He now tries to open the eyes of the beloved, or then let's say he tries to let's say pull the body. He is sitting some at a, let's say, at a place, and then he pulls the body of the beloved with the support of the wall, and then he sits adjacent to the beloved, offering her his shoulder now. He sits with her body this way the entire night, the speaker remarking that God has now yet moved to punish him. Now, friends, this is again a little threatening kind of situation. He is not feeling afraid of the dead body of the beloved. Rather, he sits adjacent to her entire night. The speaker also remarks that God has not yet moved to punish him, suggesting that God is in support of this murder. Porphyria's lover, while natural in its language, does not display the colloquialism or dialectical markers of some of Browning's later poems. Friends, when we look at the language of this poem, Porphyria's Lover, we see that it is a kind of, let's say, natural. There is a kind of naturalness of the flow of ideas in this poem. Although there is no colloquialism or dialectical markers which are discussed by Browning in the later poems. But this poem, I must say, is a masterpiece of silent communication. Moreover, while the cadence of the poem mimics natural speech, it actually takes the form of highly patterned verse rhyming AB, A, B, B. Friends, this poem is not, let's say, written in a very free style, just like a prose form. Browning is focusing too much on the language. There is a free flow of emotions, expressions, creating imagery, establishing new symbols, and a patterned verse, making this poem as one of the perfect poems written in the history of English literature. The rhyme scheme of this poem is A, B, A, B, B. There is a natural, let's say, mimicking which is there in the poem. We feel everything with a full flow going on in the, let's say, lines. The intensity and asymmetry of the pattern suggests the madness concealed within the speaker's reasoned self-presentation. Friends, we see a kind of, let's say, intensity, an asymmetry, a pattern in the madness which has overpowered the speaker's reason. The way this lover is presenting himself, it has a kind of, let's say, a kind of organized madness. A madness which has not come to the lover suddenly, but he expected to behave in this manner only in this meeting with the beloved. The poem is a dramatic monologue, a fictional speech presented as the musing of a speaker who is separate from the poet. Friends, when we are reading this dramatic monologue, we find a lot of, let's say, fictional speech in the dialogues of the lover. The lover is presented as a musing of the speaker who is separate from the poet. We cannot, let's say, relate the life of Robert Browning with the life of the lover. Robert Browning is different and the lover is different. But when Browning is writing this poem, he is not Robert Browning, but he transforms himself into a lover with a broken heart. This is the excellence of Robert Browning's writing style. Like most of Browning's other dramatic monologues, this one captures a moment after the main event or action. Friends, when we look at the, let's say, other poems or other dramatic monologues written by Robert Browning, we see that the main part or the main, let's say, scenes are captured after the main event or the action. We generally think in our life that when the main event is over or when the main action is over, everything becomes, let's say, in the falling action or the resolution happens, but it doesn't happen in the style of Robert Browning. The main event or action takes place in the beginning of the poem, and after that what comes is something that mesmerizes the readers. Porphyria already lies dead when the speaker begins. Just as the nameless speaker seeks to stop time by killing her, so too does this kind of poem seek to freeze the consciousness of an instant. Friends, when we let's say look at this poem, we find that Porphyria is now already lying dead. The murder happened, and now the speaker begins talking about, the speaker is nameless in the poem. So maybe the Robert Browning is trying to make this speaker representative of all the lovers of the world. The speaker seeks to stop time by killing her. So this is an attempt which is against the nature. Time never stops for anyone, but speaker has that kind of confidence with which he wishes to stop the time by killing the beloved. This poem is also trying to freeze the consciousness of an instant. All human beings have a kind of instinct, have a kind of consciousness, have a kind of self-control, have a kind of humanity. But this poem freezes all those kind of normal or general human emotions. We can call this situation as something extra conscious, something paranormal, something which is unnatural, but it has happened in between the lover and the beloved. Porphyria's Lover was first published as one of the two madhouse cells, which fact is used to postulate that Porphyria's lover was a madman. When this poem was published first, people considered this lover as a madman. Such is not the case, in as much as it was Browning that gave Porphyria her name. Thus, it is from her that the madman concept emanates, and as such provides a final nail in the coffin of the madman argument. And here is why Porphyria is an incurable blood disease that disables and kills thousands every year. Friends, after this poem, this term Porphyria became very famous. A disease was introduced by this name, a disease that was a kind of blood disease, and it disables the body functioning of many people and then kills 1,000 people every year. The same happens with the lover. Porphyria is killed, but the lover is slowly moving towards death. Its discovery dates back to the mid 1700s, well before Browning wrote Porphyria's lover. Friends, from where did Browning took this concept? The disease existed much before Browning's, let's say, creation of this poem, and he intentionally gave the beloved the name Porphyria, suggesting that she is a killer of the beloved. It is often referred to as mental illness or the royal disease, which, given Porphyria's tidy golden hair, means Porphyria could have been royalty, as in much as that description would not likely to be associated with Victorian lower class. Friends, we see in the poem that Porphyria is shown with a golden hair, suggesting that she belonged to the royal blood, the elite society. She is not a lower class lady, which can also lead us to an instinct that the lover is of the lower class, the beloved is of the higher class, which is why they cannot meet each other. They have social restrictions. A lower person cannot meet, let's say, cannot marry a, let's say, rich girl. Symptoms of Porphyria's disease are repeatedly described within the poem by Browning. And these are, let's say, friends, established disease symptoms by the doctors much before the time of Browning, and Browning has used them in this poem. And those symptoms are blood loss, which is represented in the line "gone so pale." Then another symptom is muscle weakness, which is shown by Browning in the phrase "too weak to set her passion free." Another symptom is light sensitivity, which explains why she arrived at night, which is shown by Browning saying "rain set in early tonight." And there are many more examples where Browning is trying to use Porphyria as a personification of the disease Porphyria, which has entered now into the house of the lover. Victims of Porphyria's disease suffer a horrible death. Thus, Porphyria's lover committed the highest act of love. He set his lover free from the grisly death. So, we can here, friends, think that the beloved is suffering from the disease Porphyria. Lover want to set her free from the pain or suffering, which is why he kills her. This is yet another meaning of behind the murder. One meaning is that Porphyria is symbolized as the symbol of the disease. Another meaning, Porphyria herself is suffering from the disease and she is relieved from pain by being killed with the, let's say, by the hands of the lover. Predilections of the outrageous means an unusual temperament, and we had seen it. There is an unusual temperament which is visible in the lines of the poem, in the behavior of lover also, in the behavior of beloved also. This particular concept suggests madness visible behind the murder. We had seen that, and we are unable to judge that who is the actual murderer. The beloved who has made the life of lover as hell. Now lover has to live a life which can be called as life in death, like the Ancient Mariner of Samuel Taylor Coleridge. On the other hand, we can also say that the madness is also visible in the murder when the lover kills the beloved. Beloved was also shown as suffering in this situation. She wanted to marry the lover, but she belonged to the higher class of the society. She is a rich girl. She knows that nobody is going to, let's say, let her live after this marriage. Even though she, without caring about anyone, came to meet the lover in that night. We can say that, friends, love is the root cause of pain and suffering in this poem. Neither lover nor beloved is responsible for the murder, but the instinct of love which has overpowered their rationality, their logicality, and thus under the influence of love, this murder happens. I hope that you have now got a holistic approach towards this poem, Porphyria's Lover. With this, we have successfully completed this poem and Unit 11. Now, I suggest you to make a first reading of the poem, and then as soon as you read with the phrases which we have discussed and the lines which we have discussed in these video lectures, I hope you will clearly understand this poem from top to bottom. So, let us wait and meet in the next class with Unit 12, which has a new text related to Victorian literature. A new poem written with a very different kind of, let's say perspective. So, we will try to look at this poem, look at that poem of Unit 12 with a new angle, with a new thought. That is all for today. Thank you for listening.